Seems to have done it again, pulled off something sneaky smart that no one saw coming that really kind of makes sense, even if on the surface it doesn't. Why wouldn't it make sense? Well, because the Trump administration is constantly talking about saving money. Why would you want to import prisoners and deport people that are working in your country? We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to go over an article for you. Then we'll talk about some of the logistics and what I think is going on here. And then I've got some numbers. I went and looked up some numbers of these cartels that probably shouldn't be surprising, but I think really are just sort of jaw dropping and stunning, the scope of what it is that we are actually looking at here. In an article from the AP titled Mexico Says 26 Alleged Cartel Figures Sent to U.S. Were Requested by Trump Administration, Not Part of Tariff Talks. Now, here's the thing. If I really, really, really want you to believe something is not another thing when it really is, and I know you're going to judge me when it really is, what am I going to tell you? I'm going to make sure I've got that guilty conscience to tell you, no, it's not that thing. What, this chocolate on my mouth? No, that's not your donut. I definitely didn't eat your donut. These cartel members are definitely not part of tariff negotiations. Certainly not. Most definitely not. No. No. Not part of tariff negotiations. T- Tariffs for terrorists. It's an exchange club. Tariffs for terrorists. Mexico sent 26 alleged cartel figures to face justice in the United States because the Trump administration requested them, and Mexico did not want them to continue running their illicit businesses from Mexican prisons, officials said Wednesday. Well, it would seem that if the Mexican cartels did not essentially run the prisons, there would be no problem with these prisoners running their business in prison, now would there? The mass transfer was not, however, part of wider negotiations as Mexico seeks to avoid higher tariffs threatened by U.S. President Donald Trump, the official said. Just happens to be happening and coinciding right now, doesn't it? These transfers are not only a strategic measure to ensure public safety, but also reflect a firm determination to prevent these criminals from continuing to operate from within prisons and to break up their networks of influence, Mexican Security Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch said in a news conference on Wednesday. The 26 prisoners handed over to American authorities on Tuesday included figures aligned with the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel, among others. They were wanted by American authorities for their roles in drug trafficking and other crimes. It comes months after 29 other alleged cartel members were sent to the U.S. in February. In the exchange, the U.S. Justice Department promised it would not seek the death penalty against any of the 55 people included in the two transfers. I bet that promise came with one of these, which experts say may help avoid any violent outbursts by the cartels in response. We'll get to that in a moment. Authorities said the operation involved nearly 1,000 law enforcement officers. Absolutely wild, but we're going to get to why in a moment. Why would you need 1,000 law enforcement officers to transfer 26 prisoners? 90 vehicles and a dozen military aircraft. Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum said earlier Wednesday that the transfers were sovereign decisions, but the move comes as the Mexican leader faces mounting pressure by the Trump administration to crack down on the cartels and fentanyl production. Now, the first question that should raise in your mind is, why is Mexico allowing this? Why is Mexico being told that they're going to surrender prisoners from their prison to the United States? Being told. We need not mince words here. This is an absolute order from the Trump administration? Well, I think it's pretty simple. Trump wants this. Trump thinks that this will look strong. Trump wants to, this will almost definitely facilitate safety to some extent, right? Who are these cartel members? To what were they privy? How important were they to the operations in which they were they were nailed down into? Why is Mexico allowing this? I think it's because they're not allowing it. I think it's because this is a direct order. I think this is because the United States is holding so much leverage over Mexico right now because everyone seems to have gotten the memo. Donald Trump will do it. Donald Trump will do it. Will he tariff allies to the tune of 35? Yeah, he'll do it. Will Donald Trump completely cut you off from trade with the United States? Yeah, he'll do it. Will Donald Trump crush your entire country economically, which will have dire consequences for you as the leader? Because yeah, he'll do it. Yeah, he'll do it. This whole taco thing that they've come up with, Trump always chickens out. Well, there's a lot of countries right now that wished he was chickening out. And I think that feeds into what I think is just from reading Donald Trump, what I think is coming next. This is not all inclusive. This is a good first step. This is to sweeten up Mexico to the idea of, hey, the United States is going to deal with your cartel problem, whether you admit there is a cartel problem or not, and whether you admit that the United States has to be the one to take care of it or not. I think we are weeks away from Trump and Sheinbaum having a backdoor discussion, or a backdoor agreement, whereby Trump will go out and be the face of this and say, look here, Claudia Sheinbaum, I'll be the bad guy. I'll do it. Or what I'll do is cut off trade with your entire country. He will threaten to cut off trade with Mexico, which would decimate Mexico, or you let him be the bad guy, come in and get the cartels. That's what I think is happening. It won't be an actual ultimatum. They will have come to this understanding behind doors, and Trump all of a sudden looks like he's playing 4D chess. And here's the thing. I don't think it will be American troops on the ground. One of the things that has been surprising since Trump got into office, because he had talked so vociferously about this before being elected, has been the continuation of the Ukraine-Russia war. I think that this is an example of the old adage, never let a good crisis go to waste. What would I mean by that? What's the good crisis going to waste in Ukraine? I think the Ukraine situation, the Ukraine war, has completely changed what the battlefield looks like. It's all drone warfare now. You think Donald Trump hasn't noticed that? You think that Palantir hasn't noticed that? You think that the Defense Department has not noticed that? Indeed, they have. And now, guess what? In this hemisphere, the United States knows about as much about drone warfare as anyone besides Ukraine. In fact, probably on the world scale, if we're talking about drone warfare, the United States is probably number 2 in the world to Ukraine. Maybe so I don't know about the drones in Russia. I don't know if they are as prevalent as for Ukraine. It would stand to reason that they must have some prevalence there. Otherwise, the bloodbath would be outrageous, right, on one side. What I will tell you is that if Ukraine knows more about drone warfare than anyone in the world, China knows more about drones than anyone in the world. Have you seen these drone light shows that they do? Not to get sidetracked, but the Defense Department is going to know a whole lot of drone warfare. You know who's probably not going to know all that much about drone warfare? The cartels. They have experience, I'm sure. Is it going to be as extensive as an entire battlefield the way that it is for the United States? I doubt it. I do not think there will be a single American boot on the ground in Mexico. I think that this will be a drone and Air Force operation, and they're just going to run this by surveillance and air. Which, by the way, if you want to talk about Trump and 4D chess, Trump gets in, he's ended, I don't know, 1,000 wars, it seems like. He's signing a peace treaty every third day that he's been in office, it feels like. What if you go ahead and start a war, but you start a war with a universal bad guy? The cartels. Anybody like the cartels? I don't think so. Not only do you start a war and it's with a universal bad guy, but you don't lose a single American troop. And you win. If he can pull that off, watch the approval ratings. Now, why do we want them in America? That's sort of the next question, right? The two big questions coming out of this, I think, are why is Mexico allowing this, and why do we want these people in the United States? Especially when the Trump administration has talked so much about cutting costs, about being conservative, fiscally conservative, about cutting the debt, right? And I went and I looked, it costs about $60,000 a year to have a max security prisoner in the United States. Now, higher some places, lower some places, right in the middle there is $60,000 a year. When you're having an influx of 26 of these individuals, that becomes $1.56 million per year. $1.56 million per year the United States is basically paying as a tariff on housing cartel members. Why do it? Why do you want them? Well, here's a couple examples that I pulled up from ChatGPT. I asked how many times have there ever been instances where a cartel kind of took over a prison as a cartel. Yes, Mexican cartels have stormed prisons before to free their members, sometimes with extreme violence. Other times, because they haven't had to use violence. Why? Because everyone just leaves. I am not fighting for this, they say as they place their gun upon the ground and run as fast as they can. That's how scary the cartels are. They take over prisons sometimes without violence. Okay, you want your neighbor's house. You have to go with some type of weapon, don't you? I would. I'm not a scary guy. But if you showed up at your neighbor's house and said, hey, this is mine now, and they just leave, you must be pretty scary, right? So, Ciudad Juarez prison riot and escape in 2023. This was just a couple years ago. Group Mexicals. I am definitely not making a joke about a cartel's name, but Mexicals gang allied with the Sinaloa cartel. What happened? Armed men in armored vehicles attacked Cerezo No. 3 prison in Ciudad Juarez, killing at least 17 people. Goal? Free their leader, Ernesto Alfredo Piñon de la Cruz El Neto. That's a lot of names for one individual. Outcome? They succeeded. El Neto escaped with around 30 other inmates, but was killed by police a few days later. Tula Hidalgo prison break, 2021. We're just 4 years ago. We've got 2 examples. Group Pueblos Unidos gang linked to the oil theft in Mexico. What happened? Armed men used car bombs and heavy gunfire to storm a prison. Goal: free Jose Artemio Maldonado Mejia El Michoacano, the gang's leader. Outcome: successful. El Michoacano escaped with 8 others. He was recaptured days later. Apatizingán prison attack, 2011. Now we're over a decade. Likely linked to the Knights Templar cartel. Dozens of gunmen attacked the prison to free cartel members. Outcome: around 35 inmates escaped. And then there was the famous Ovidio Guzman infamous 2019 release. I believe this was El Chapo's cousin, nephew, son, something like that. He went to prison, and where's the phrase here? His release came from government orders rather than a direct storm. There have been, I can't remember what it was, but basically the government ordered release was influenced by the cartels. I'll say that again. The cartels told the government, hey, you're going to release our buddy here. And they did. So that is a pretty big reason why you want these individuals in the United States as opposed to in prison in Mexico. They're going to be much harder to reach in the United States. It's going to be much harder to perform a prison break in the United States. And here's the thing. If you want to bring hellfire and brimstone to your cartel, possibly your entire country, go ahead and break into a prison in the United States and see what happens, because it's not going to be nice. Like that's not going to go over as well in the United States as it has in Mexico. Now most of these people were recaptured in Mexico. That will not be the case. That will not listen to what happens to people when they steal a car in the United States. Sometimes it's pretty bad stuff. So if you think you're going to steal an inmate who is in prison for life in the United States, somebody's going to have a very bad day. The other thing is, I do not suspect that these individuals will have a very good time. Okay? And maybe some of that not having a very good time is used as trade bait. Maybe you can have a couple days of good time. What do you know about X, Y, and Z? You're here for life. Go ahead and say something. Go ahead and tell us. Go ahead and let us know. Because that solitary confinement could be 2 days a week, not 5. Whatever it is. Whatever that leverage is, that leverage will exist. And quite frankly, these individuals are classified as terrorists. That means they do not have to be held at your county jail. That means they do not have to be held at the federal penitentiary. If I'm not mistaken, the terrorist designation means maybe we don't know where that prison is. Maybe some pretty bad things happen there. Maybe we forgot we had you, and so did everyone else. Those things really do happen. I'm 1,000% willing to bet those things really happen. Now, maybe not with these prisoners, because these prisoners have been named in a, you don't want to say prisoner exchange, but something close to that. Now, what exactly are we looking at with this? Like, What is this, gang activity? You're telling me that the power of the entire United States has to come down upon another country over gang activity? No. No, 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 no. Top Mexican cartels by estimated annual revenue. Annual revenue. The Sinaloa cartel, 11 to 12 billion dollars per year from fentanyl, meth, heroin, cocaine trafficking, global drug export networks, and money laundering. 11 to 12 billion dollars per year. Cartel de la Jalisco Nueva Generacion. I had never heard of this one. 8 to 10 billion dollars per year. U.S. fentanyl, meth trafficking, extortion, oil theft, and global routes. Gulf Cartel, $2 to $3 billion per year. Cocaine and meth transport, migrant smuggling, and extortion, $2 to $3 billion per year. Los Zetas. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this $1 to $2 billion organization, known for fuel theft, extortion, human trafficking, and cocaine transport, I believe the story behind the Zetas is that the Mexican government was having problems with the cartels, so they started a special forces operation. One day, the guys in the special forces operation basically decided there's a lot more money in what those guys are doing than in what we're doing. So they kept their guns, they had their training, and they became those guys. I believe that's the story of the Zetas. They just decided, why am I putting my life on the line and in terrible, miserable, awful, no good fashion if I get caught as a member of this force, this police force? It's not a good ending. Why am I doing that when I could take just as much risk with no rules and 1,000 times the money? There are things you can't do when you are a member of law enforcement. When you just decide that you're the Zetas and you're taking someone else's territory, there's nothing you can't do. Right? So very scary people here. Beltran Leyva organization, $1 billion. We're on the 5th biggest cartel, and we're still in the billions per year. Cocaine, heroin, meth trafficking, now smaller but still active in Guerrero. La Familia Micocachana, Knights Templar remnants, $500 million to $1 billion. Meth, extortion, mining, theft. Juarez cartel, $500 million. Cocaine, meth trafficking, extortion, human smuggling. Los Chapitos faction, unknown hundreds of millions. Fentanyl, meth, mostly to the West Coast. Cartel de Noresta, cocaine, meth, transit, kidnapping, extortion, Northeast Mexico. Independent region. So am I missing something? I apologize. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, we didn't even see the, what was the one that was causing all those problems in Colorado? Trende, or is that not from Mexico? Trende Aragua or whatever? Is that not Mexican? Maybe I have no idea about some of this stuff, guys. So I apologize for that part of things. But I think that is what we are seeing from this. That is why we are seeing this. And I think that is a little bit of what we are going to see. Trump saying, listen here, I'll be the bad guy or I'll cut off trade. And then you're the bad guy. So the bad guys can come after Trump or they can come after you, right? I think that is the ultimatum that will ultimately be set up on Trump's side of things, but I think it will be agreed to beforehand. Anyway, guys, that's what I have here. If you like or appreciate what I do, hitting a like button really does help me out. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more really helps me out as well. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.